Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining the Mobile Sources team here at New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services as we host a webinar and Q&A session on our New Hampshire Clean Diesel Grant Program funded through EPA's Diesel Emission Reduction Act, or DERA. We'll just give another minute or two for everyone to join before launching into the presentation. In the meantime, just want to do a quick round of introductions for the DES team. I'm Jack Wade. I supervise the mobile sources section here, and I will turn it over to Mac Bevere, who is our grants coordinator.
Hi, my name is Mac. I'm the grants coordinator here at NHDES under Mobile Sources. I currently manage the Granite State Clean Fleets program, which is mostly on-road units that is funded by the Volkswagen Mitigation Trust, and this program, which is the New Hampshire Clean Diesel program, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. We're just going to wait for a couple of people to join, and then we'll probably start in about a minute or two.
And Jessica Wilcox, the Tech Services Bureau Administrator, has also been kind enough to join today as well. So Jessica, I'll let you say hi.
Thanks so much, Jack. I'm happy to support this team. We're excited about having some funding to make available to all the good people of New Hampshire. So welcome to the call. I'm pleased to oversee a bureau here at the State Department of Environmental Services that's working on transportation as well as energy programs and our air quality monitoring team. So we got a lot of good stuff going on here, but happy to join everybody today.
Thank you, Jess. And seeing as it's now 2:03 and we've got quite a few people on, Mac, you want to go ahead and take it away, and we'll start the show.
Yeah, definitely. So again, we're talking about our New Hampshire Clean Diesel program, which is funded by the Volkswagen not the Volkswagen Mitigation Trust, the Diesel Emissions Reduction Act. So we're going to do a quick overview. We're going to do the introduction, a few changes, eligibility, steps to apply, program alternatives, and then just give people time for questions if they have any. So just a couple of quick housekeeping things. So the webinar is going to go from 2 to 3. All questions are going to be submitted in the chat. Participants will be muted throughout the webinar for additional clarification. For a question, we will let people unmute if needed. Some questions may require some further follow-up if we need to look something up that may be a little bit more complicated. So if you could email us a long-winded question, that would be great. And we'll get back to you as fast as we can. Any questions that are new, we will add on to our FAQs document, which will be posted online. If any statements made in the webinar contradict the information on the request for proposals, which is basically our how to apply guide for the program, the information on that RFP will take precedence. So what is the New Hampshire Clean Diesel program? This is a reimbursement program created to reduce diesel emissions in the state. It's funded by the EPA through the Federal Diesel Emissions Reduction Act and is managed by us at Mobile Sources. So we currently have $315,000 of DERA funding available. Applications will be accepted by midnight on the 20th of each month on a rolling monthly basis until all funding has been obligated. This is something that is new and what we haven't done in the past before. This is to allow people a little bit more time to complete their projects and maybe give people some time to think up some projects as well when they apply. NHDES, we aim to score complete and accurate applications and notify applicants of selection within 5 business days of the 20th of each month. So I will look at our guide, request for proposals, full for grant timelines, eligibility info, funding limits, and scoring criteria. So let's talk about some eligible projects. So some diesel off-road vehicle equipment replacements, diesel on-road vehicle replacement equipments if replaced with electric vehicles, diesel engine replacements, and idle reduction technologies. I would say the difference between this program and Granite State Clean Fleets program is diesel to diesel replacements for on-road vehicles does qualify under the Granite State Clean Fleets program, but it has to be a diesel to electric for diesel on-road vehicles for New Hampshire clean diesel. So we do allow on-road units, but it has to be replaced with an electric vehicle in this program. So kind of similar, the two programs, but a little bit different. So usage requirements. So we've got agricultural pumps, locomotives and marine engines, all other non-road engines, highway vehicle engines. So please note the differences with the usage requirements in these in the different types of projects. And we will be checking that in your applications. Please note that all vehicles or engines proposed to be replaced must have at least 3 years of remaining useful life for any of these types of projects. So let's talk about reimbursement. So it depends on the type of unit and the type of project. It's between 25 to 60% of eligible project costs, depending on the technology that's proposed for the program. This includes charging infrastructure when replacing with an electric vehicle. And I do see a question, and we'll get to that at the end of the webinar. We won't forget about you. So in this table, as you can see, the differences in the project types and the differences in reimbursement percentages.
Just want to say one thing real quick, Matt. The funding percentage table here is inclusive of all of the DERA project types or New Hampshire Clean Diesel project types. We have reduced the eligible project types to those that'll be seen on the next slide. So some of these are not included for funding. So we just recommend everyone read the RFP for full details, and we'll cover some of the specific project types in the next few slides. Thanks.
So let's compare our programs a little bit here. So of course we have Granite State Clean Fleets, which is our Volkswagen program, and New Hampshire Clean Diesel, which is the program that we're talking about today. So they are very similar again, but they do have different funding percentages depending on the type of project. So diesel to diesel can be 80% or 25% for New Hampshire Clean Diesel. Some of these projects don't qualify under New Hampshire Clean Diesel, but do qualify for Granite State Clean Fleets. So again, these are very similar, but you always want to check the RFPs and read the fine print because there are a couple of differences here. Same thing for this table as well. This is our different project types that could qualify for New Hampshire Clean Diesel or Granite State Clean Fleets. So this is just a side-by-side comparison, kind of an easy guide of what qualifies and what doesn't. I would still look at the request for proposals or how to apply guide to make sure that you have all of the information that you need to make sure that your project does qualify, but this is a nice little cheat sheet. So when your project is scored, it is there are different percentages for, there's different points for different category in the scoring sheet that you can find on the request for proposals. And part of that scoring, one of the sections is prior to New Hampshire communities, which we provide 10 bonus points for New Hampshire communities ranked 1st through 50th in the New Hampshire below level percentage, below the poverty line. We also provide 5 bonus points for New Hampshire communities ranked 51st through 100th in individuals below the poverty level percentage. So 5 bonus points for that. So if you're again, within a community within these poverty lines, you may be eligible for up to 10 or 5 bonus points in your scoring. So steps to apply, pretty simple. Read the request for proposals. I think I've said that a couple of times. Complete the application. So there's a couple of different forms. And so the A1 form is for unit replacement proposals. So that's probably going to be the majority of the proposals that we'll get is from the A1 form. And then A2 form is truck idle reduction proposals. So if you are doing a truck idle reduction proposal, you do not use the A1 form, you only do the A2 form and vice versa. So you're not filling out 2 forms, you're going to fill out 1. Email the completed application to msgrants@des.nh.gov and review the New Hampshire Clean Diesel webpage for more details. If you scan that QR code, that is our New Hampshire Clean Diesel webpage. If you have any questions, we also have a FAQ document that you can review. And if that FAQ document did not address your questions, you can talk to us here at the end of this webinar. You can email us at msgrants@des.nh.gov, or you can give us a call. So a couple of options. Now Jack is going to open it up for questions.
Thank you, Mac. Look forward to seeing everyone's questions today around the program. I think we do have one already from Ralph Carter. So we'll go to that first. And Ralph's asking, can you replace a backhoe from 2006 era to a new backhoe 2025 model? That would be an eligible project type under this program. Do want to caveat that with the old backhoe does need to meet the minimum usage requirements. And so for an off-road project, you're looking at 500 hours of use per year in the last 2 years. So if your project can meet that, then it does meet that qualification for eligibility. Looks like Michael, you have your hand raised. We are requesting folks put their questions in the chat so we can address them. So any questions, please put them in the meeting chat and we'll discuss. And same with, Joe Levesque has a question here. Can we replace a grader from 1994 with a new diesel grader? And the answer would be yes. Again, caveat that with that minimum usage requirement of 500 hours per year in the last 2 years. Looks like one from Beth Blair here. Are transfer station packer trucks eligible? They are indeed eligible. We've had similar projects to that before. Again, need to meet that engine model year requirement. So if that's considered an on-road unit, then it needs to be, it can be any model year actually, but it has to be replaced with an electric unit. And if it's considered an off-road unit, it just needs to meet those engine tier restrictions that can be found in our RFP. So. I do have a question here from Angelique. What constitutes as a transit agency? We are mainly looking at transit providers. Now, this RFP is only open to New Hampshire public entities at this point. So if you're a state entity or municipal entity, any public entity that's operating as a transit agency would be eligible under this program, an eligible entity. It's not open at this time for private or non-profit. And it looks like we have another question from Michael. Looking to replace a town dump truck. This is for on-road. As long as it meets usage requirements, is this eligible? So this is the perfect case, Michael. We have another program. It's called the Granite State Clean Fleets Program, and it's running under our Volkswagen Mitigation Trust. And we are looking to fund diesel to diesel replacement. So if you're looking for a new diesel plow truck, That would be a great project for our Granite State Clean Fleets program. And a project like that can get up to 80% of the funding for it. Engine model year restrictions do apply for that program, so it would have to be an engine model year 2009 or older plow truck to meet the requirements for that grant. Now, if you have a newer plow truck that you're looking to replace, say from, you know, engine model year 2012 or 2015, you can replace that under the New Hampshire Clean Diesel program, but the new truck has to be an electric one. So those are just the stipulations of the federal grant that we're working under. So again, if you have a 2009 or older, look at Granite State Clean Fleets. 2010 or newer, you can replace with an electric one under the New Hampshire Clean Diesel program. So Beth has a good question here. So if our Packer truck travels from our transfer station to the incinerator, it is considered on-road and we would need to replace it with an electric vehicle. So there's some different stipulations within the New Hampshire Clean Diesel program in terms of what constitutes an on-road or an off-road vehicle. Typically, you would look at the registration. So if it's classified as an on-road vehicle, that's how you'd have to apply for it under the program. There can be some exceptions though. So if you're using an on-road truck, for instance, in a predominantly off-road capacity, for instance, if it doesn't quite leave the transfer station lot, that could be classified as an off-road unit. So how that unit gets classified changes the minimum usage requirements. Key part of this program, because an on-road unit needs to drive 7,000 miles or more per year in the last 2 years, whereas an off-road just needs to have 500 hours of engine use per year in the last 2 years. So Beth, I would recommend you look at the registration for the vehicle to see how it's kind of classified. And then feel free to email us if you have some more information about it. Happy to take a closer look at, the potential project to see how it could fit. So. Thank you, Jessica, for posting the Granite State Clean Fleets grant page. So for folks that have heard us talk about the Volkswagen Trust and what projects are eligible under those programs, highly recommend that you look at the Granite State Clean Fleets grant program for more information. Just another question from Phoebe Mullen about the replacement ZE, assuming that's zero emissions vehicles. Correct me if I'm wrong. Need to be newly manufactured, or can they be older model years? We will need to look into that one a little closer. This program doesn't have the exact same requirements as the Volkswagen Granite State Clean Fleets grant, which does require vehicles to be new in the model year that the action occurs, essentially. So maybe I'll track that one down a little more and give you a better response. The thing I do want to note is just around the minimum usage requirements. And Mac, I'm not sure if you can go back to that slide that has those requirements on it, but I do want to note that DES will not be seeking waivers of those requirements from EPA. So any project that's submitted under this program does need to meet these requirements. This time, we're not going to be seeking waivers of those. So to make sure that's understood before any time gets invested in submitting. One thing I'd also like to mention is for those projects that are replacing, diesel unit with an electric one, you can fund the charging infrastructure as well under this grant. So the grant could fund the cost of the replacement vehicle and the charging infrastructure itself. There are some different stipulations with that. So any charging infrastructure installed with this grant funding does need to be Build America, Buy America compliant. So that has to meet certain domestic sourcing and manufacturing qualifications to be eligible for funding. So just keep that in mind if you're proposing an electrification project.
As a reminder, please put your questions in the chat if you have any. If we don't have any further questions, we can go through our A1 form and our A2 form just to give everybody a little bit of insight about our application form and what information is required. So we're just going to give a minute for me to pull that up. And wait for everybody to see if anybody has any questions, and we can move on from there. So if you have another question, feel free to drop it in the chat. All right, it sounds like we don't have any other questions. So we're going to move on to looking at our webpage and our A1 and A2 forms. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to continue to give us your questions as we go. If anything pops up about this, the webpage or about the forms. So our New Hampshire Clean Diesel page, so you can find that under Business, Community, and Loans and Grant, and New Hampshire Clean Diesel. So this talks about our eligible projects. If you scroll down to steps to apply. So step one, like we talked about, read our request for proposal. So that's our guide on how to apply. Step two is complete the application, which we're going to go through right now. So we're going to open this document. It's loading. You can do it. There we go. So some people get a little confused about this, and this is one of the reasons why I like to go through this form. You click download mail-in form. This will allow you to download that A1 or A2 application form. You click right here, and you can fill out your application within your web browser. Once you fill out the application, you just hit download. And you would download with changes, of course, and then you would email us that form. So just going through the form here. So talking about the program, this does not guarantee selection, of course. This is scored by a scoring committee, and everything has to be approved by governor and council, which is the governor's cabinet. So even if you've been selected by our scoring committee, you still have to be approved by governor and council before expending any funds. So make note of that as you're going through this process. Talking about our general eligibility requirements, that the project hasn't started, again, not before GNC is approved, and that the project has to be completed by September 30th, 2026. So that's also in the RFP, which you should read. So each existing unit must be 3 years of remaining useful life. So you would check that because that is a requirement. Each existing unit has been owned and operated by the applicant for at least 2 years prior. So that is a requirement. And then a couple of non-road and on-road requirements here, which you can go through in your own time. Please note, failure to meet all of the program requirements will result in a disqualification. So make sure that you go through this before you fill out the application. So Section 2 is just project information and applicant information. Who owns the unit? So the primary contact of the organization, if you have any project partners, percent operation in New Hampshire. We are looking to reduce emissions in the state of New Hampshire. So that is something that we look at. Looking at project type, eligible project cost, all of this information we will need. If you do not fill out this information, we will drop you an email and ask for it anyways. So you might as well just put it in the form. So Section 3 is unit specifications. So we're comparing the existing unit with the replacement unit, right, for emissions. So we want all of the specs for the existing unit and the replacement unit and the unit type. So this is something that we will need as we move forward with assessing your project once we score once the scoring committee scores your project. The class, of course, that is what we'll need. Engine horsepower, cylinder displacement, after treatment, all this information is needed. So, and that is typically, if you don't have this information, you can typically contact the manufacturer and ask them for it. Project descriptions. This is kind of our narrative section, talking about the project overview, summarizing your project. What are you trying to accomplish? What is it? How are you using it? Project timeline is just how long is it going to take you to complete your project? Pretty simple. And making sure that you meet that 2026 timeline, of course. Potential for success. So giving us why you feel this project would be successful and make it by that 2026 guideline and how that will reduce emissions. Budget narrative and matching funds. Just provide us information about where this funding is coming from. So that is something that we would like to know, of course. We cannot allow non-federal matching funds. So this must be funds that is coming from your organization and not from another federal grant or something like that. And if you plan to sell and or scrap and salvage the parts and sell it for parts, you can do that, but we need proof that you have made money off of that. So that is just something that we like to know. Remaining useful life. If your project is not funded, how long is this unit going to stay on the road, so to speak, even though some of them could be on road or off road, but how long is it going to be operating? Fuel justification. If you, for instance, can't run a diesel unit on alternative fuel, or if you can't replace your diesel unit with an EV, we just like to know why, essentially. So current unit condition and maintenance information. So just knowing how much have we spent in funding to maintain this unit? Is this unit something that you've spent a lot of time to keep it on the road? Or is this something that's like brand new and haven't really had any issues with? So that's something that we'd like to know. Project locations, the areas that this unit serves, that is something that is really important because we think about the locations of exposure and various things like that, and also the distance of where you're traveling with this unit and how many hours and such. Community impacts, we talk about exposure of emissions to other people around in the state, or any positive benefits of this unit to the community. So for instance, if you are operating in like a senior facility or a low income facility or something like that, that is something that we like to know. So, and any additional benefits, so any environmental benefits like air quality or anything like that, that is something that we like to know as well. And then for marine locomotive stationary engines only, please justify or why how the proposed emissions reductions are not subject to the below restrictions mandated. So that is something that we like to know, and that is something that you can find guidance on in the Appendix B of EPA's 2023-2024 DERA State Grants Program Guide. And then when you submit your application form, we have just a little snippet at the bottom here about how to submit it and what documentation is required when you submit your application form. So providing 2 quotes for your new unit that you would like to purchase with this reimbursement program. Provide photographs of the existing unit and their specs, so like their VIN and their engine serial number and such. Photos of the around the outside of the unit as well. And then the application, of course, please send that in an email to us, and any other additional supporting documentation. You can put in maps if, for instance, you have like a driving route that you use or something like that. So, so that is just how you need to submit that application, is that last section. So I
One quick
think I
thing I'd
saw
like
a
to note
question
here.
in the chat, Jack, right?
Looks like I think we've addressed the questions we have so far. I did want to add a comment though, just on the photograph section of this. We do request that the engine tag photo is submitted to us. However, if that's missing through just wear and tear over the years, you can provide other documentation. So that should come from the manufacturer of the engine or the vehicle, and just include elements like the engine family number, serial number, engine model year, etc.
So we're just going to wait a little bit for any other questions. But that is basically the breakdown of one of our application forms. If you are unsure about if your project that you're thinking about proposing qualifies or not, feel free to reach out, and we can point you in the right direction in the RFP on what information you will need to figure out whether or not your project qualifies. So feel free to drop us an email or give us a call.
Yep, always happy to point folks in the right direction if you're not sure maybe which DES grant program to apply for, we're here to help. So please shoot us any questions or comments that you have, and we'll help point you in the right direction for your project. One thing I do want to mention with this New Hampshire Clean Diesel program is you must scrap the unit that's being replaced. So if you're replacing, let's say, a diesel grader with a new diesel grader, you do have to drill a 3-inch hole in that engine block of the old diesel grader, and you do have to cut the chassis rails in half. So the vehicle ultimately has to be completely disabled to the point where no one can reuse that engine or the chassis again. You may sell attachments of that old unit. So if you're looking to sell, tires or plow blades or other attachments, that's totally fine. As Mac mentioned, just disclose any income that comes from that on your application form. That is a requirement from EPA that gets disclosed. So with that said, if there's any questions around the scrappage process, please feel free to ask.
I also wanted to mention that if you are interested in any future opportunities in our grant programs, to subscribe to our e-news if you have not. I'm assuming some people have, because that's probably how they found out about this webinar, but you never know. So we can drop that link to our e-news in the chat for you to subscribe. That is the quickest way to find out any new programs or updates or anything like that. It just goes right to your inbox. We won't send you any spam mail. And we'll send you flyers on our new programs. So.
Another thing I wanted to mention, I know Mac touched on this at the start of the application form, but you can't apply for projects that are already completed. So just make sure you check that box on the application form that you haven't started your project yet and it's not already done. That is an important element of this funding. You have to have approval by the Governor and Executive Council before your project can start spending funds. So always worth it. And Drew, to your question about the total funding amount that remains, it's approximately $315,000 at this point.
Awesome. So we just dropped the subscription to our e-news in the chat, so feel free to check that out. If we don't have any other questions, we can give a few minutes for any others, but if not, I hope everybody enjoys their day. It's beautiful out.
Yep. We'll be hanging out for a few more minutes yet. But if we get to say 2:45 and no more questions are forthcoming, we'll give you guys 15 minutes back in your time. So last chance to shoot and ask those questions.
That is a good question. So we will be dropping the recording of this webinar online. And that will be on our New Hampshire Clean Diesel page. And also if there's any additional questions that was not on our FAQs already, we'll update our FAQs. But if there was not any questions that was already on our FAQs, we will not update it, and we'll just have our original FAQs document there. So that will be on our New Hampshire Clean Diesel page, and I can drop that in the chat for you.
Thanks, Mac. And I know Drew has got a couple questions here just about how guaranteed the funding is and is it a risk of being clawed back. This funding is obligated to the state, so New Hampshire does have it available to expend. There are project completion deadlines, as are mentioned in the RFP, so all projects do need to be completed by that September 30th, 2026 deadline. So just keep that in mind as you think about your projects.
I also am going to drop Granite State Clean Fleets into the chat. If you do not have a project that qualifies for New Hampshire Clean Diesel, check out Granite State Clean Fleets, which is funded by the Volkswagen Mitigation Trust.
So you got a really good question here from Rick. So what if you've been rewarded other grant programs like this in the past 4 to 5 years? Is that a strike against you? Absolutely not. So there's no penalty for having been either a prior recipient of this award or other similar grant programs. In fact, if you do have prior experience with grants like this one or similar, please put that in the application form. We like to know that there's been successful past execution of grants, especially transportation related ones. So we highly recommend that you include that in the application form. I think we'll give it a couple more minutes, and there's no more questions by 2:46 or so. We'll adjourn and let you guys enjoy this beautiful Wednesday afternoon.
If anybody has any neighboring towns or state entities that are interested in the program, feel free to forward them our flyers or our email as well. We are, again, open to any questions from different towns that we haven't heard from for applications and such, or any state entities. So any questions are good. So if you have one, feel free. Do not be afraid to reach out.
As we're coming up on 2:46, we'll give a little bit longer here. So last chance, very last chance to ask those questions. Next 30 seconds or so. we don't hear any, we'll end the event a bit early and give you guys time back in the afternoon. We will be posting the recording, as Max said, on the website, and updating the FAQ document with any questions that are new. So look forward to posting on the website. Thank you all. And with that said, I think we'll go ahead and close it up. So thanks everyone for attending and for the great questions today. Again, feel free to reach out to us if you have any further questions. And look forward to seeing those projects come in.